Hey, how's it going, y'all? Welcome to, well, mid-evening rant chat. I was going to say late night, but it's not late night yet. It's about 7:30 here, Vancouver, Washington. I decided to make this video, for what it's worth, to just add to the chaos of the internet. It's already loaded with everybody else's opinion on situations. I wanted to talk politics. I've been kind of avoiding it. I've only mentioned a couple times my feelings, and I made it pretty clear that I dislike Trump a lot. But I wanted to kind of come back and revisit this idea of why I like Bernie Sanders and why I find Trump to be appalling. And I also want to start off by saying, first off, if you are a Trump supporter, know that I'm not here to diss Trump. In fact, in the last month, I'd say in the last 3 weeks or so, I've developed a whole new respect for Donald Trump. Something I thought I would never say. It has nothing to do with the things he's said, because I truly don't believe he will implement any of them, and I honestly don't believe that he really believes half the things he's saying, if not any of them. But I believe that, from what I understand, he's been planning this for a few years. He understands how to sway the media and how to win, and so he's played this as a game. So what that's done is it's opened it up to mainstream, to people who don't know any better, who haven't been paying attention, the people who those may call asleep. I don't like using that term. I don't like using sheeple or any of that, because I know that each person is aware to a certain degree that the shit's not good. In other words, the people who say that everyone else is asleep and not paying attention, they don't understand. Everyone else is aware too. They just don't know what to do. But not everyone gives a shit. They don't seem to understand what's really going on behind the scenes. So anyway, people like Donald Trump, who are billionaires, represent the very people who have caused the problems in the first place. Now, others from the other side may agree that, or they may disagree and say that Republicans, anyway, may disagree and say that those who make a lot of money provide more jobs for more workers. And in a lot of cases that's true. So if you have more tax breaks for a large company, you can give your employees more money. But the ratio to how many bonuses and extras and extravagances that are given to corporate executives compared to the actual raises and benefits to the small guy, they just don't match up. So what we have is an economy where things aren't fair, where the upper class is taking more than their share. And the right wing would like to tell you, well, people don't understand what's going on because we're giving all our money to welfare. The idea is that many people seem to think that Bernie is a socialist and that he's just going to run the economy into the ground by giving all our money away to people. I mean, how dare he give our money away to people for schooling and health? But I understand where folks are coming from, because people believe that a majority of folks who are collecting welfare, Social Security, are lazy and good for nothing. At least all the Trump people I've talked to say that a majority of people are taking advantage. From what I've looked at, majority of people are not taking advantage. They're merely taking what they can get in a system where their resources are gradually depleted by greedy executives, greedy companies who move their companies offshore. So we know that Wall Street and large corporate America are the ones who are moving our jobs overseas, the ones who have stored their money in offshore accounts. It's nothing like a conspiracy, it's just a fact. We've seen it over and over, people getting in trouble for storing money. And I'm sure a guy like Donald Trump is no different. I'm sure he's hidden and evaded plenty of taxes. But that's just an assumption. Who knows? Maybe he hasn't. Maybe he's played the game fair. But the guy like Sanders is always going to be accused of being a socialist merely because he has an opinion that people should have health and an education. And I know that may not seem like a basic human right to a lot of people, but when you compare our country to other countries which already have free education and already have free health care for all their people, you start to wonder, why are we so behind in the times? Why are other countries healthier? And why are they paying less? Well, let's just agree to disagree and say Trump supporters, Bernie supporters, they're both people who are sick of the system and want change. And I know a lot of Trump supporters have said that they want to see the whole system dismantled. They're sick of it all, and Trump is just telling it like it is. Well, let's just agree to disagree, but we can maybe agree that Trump's not telling it like it is, but he is shaking up the system, and he's showing the weakness in the GOP, and he's showing the weakness in the Democratic Party. And the thing people don't realize is they're not paying attention to Sanders because everybody's talking about Clinton. Well, Sanders still has a chance if he wins enough, and if he gets enough delegates, he might be able to pull it off. It's still possible. It is possible still, as of today. So he came to town today, and we stood in line for like 2 hours. It was a mile-long line, zigzagging all around the grounds of this school and down this long sidewalk. We stood in the rain and waited, and I was freezing cold the whole time, but I eventually warmed up. We went out, we got up there to where we were maybe, a few hundred yards from the door, and then they started diverting everybody over to the side and said, sorry, we're full. And it was okay, So we went over to the side by this little gate, and they got everybody organized around this gate, and Bernie came out and spoke to us and talked to the little group that was stuck outside. There was probably a little under, maybe 1,000 people there. And then he went and he talked to all the people in the cafeteria that were in the overflow area, and then he went in and did his main speech. The guy cares, and he's really getting around, but I was standing, maybe 10 feet from Bernie and just, watching him present his speech and watching him as a human being. And being there was not that big of a deal to me to be there. For my sake, it was for their sake, for his sake, for the whole cause sake. Because every person who showed up to that rally, whether they got in or not, was showing a presence where they were making themselves known. They were standing there to make a difference. Yeah, and I even bought my Bernie shirt, Feel the Burn. Try to support the cause as much as we can. And during the... anyway, that's my thing. I support Sanders because I like the guy, and I believe that he can make a difference, and we might have to sacrifice a little bit this generation for a better generation the next one. And I know that's what it seems like it's come down to is values. A lot of people don't want to sacrifice anything right now. They don't want higher taxes. They're already broke. They don't want to change their way of life. They don't want to get to new energy. They're used to mining coal and doing what they do, and I understand that. People have had things a certain way a long time, and it's really hard to change that. But I think we need to come together now more than ever to figure out what is the real best route, not who can point the finger. Now, with all those 5,000-6,000 people standing in line, there was one guy that drove by back and forth on the street with a Trump flag hanging off the back of his truck, and everybody's just kind of like, whatever. The only Trump supporter I saw there was as we watched him speak, and then we were all walking out of the rally down the sidewalk, there was a guy standing there. Just some larger guy with the beard, hat, standing there with an iPad in the rain. And on his iPad, the screen said Trump 2016, and it had a picture of Trump in the middle. And as we walked by, I didn't say anything, and I used to be the guy that would always say something, but my wife did instead. She goes, you need to get educated, bro. And what the guy said was, you need to get a job. Why don't you get a job? That's what he said. Why don't you get a job? And I'll tell you something, because that really, we both laughed about this, because this is something that every Trump supporter has argued with me. They say, you liberals, you just need to get a job. You need to stop sucking off the system. I say, I work my ass off. My wife works her ass off. She's been working since she was 15, and she's never taken time off. She never takes a sick day. I mean, she's one of the hardest workers ever, and she's a hardcore liberal. And, I know a ton of people like this. So the notion that liberals are somehow lazy is completely false. However, I'm not going to end it there. I have to be fair and say to all the liberals out there, realize that not all conservatives are jerks or assholes or ignorant, that they're voting for what they think is best for the country. The idea is not to shame them, not to insult Trump voters, but to make them feel comfortable and discuss it and explain to them why you think Bernie or whoever is better, whatever your personal opinion may be. I'm not pushing anything on anyone. We all have our own views of what we think the country needs and what the world needs. So for me to sit here and tell you this is how you should vote would be preposterous. I'm just explaining my point of view, on this corner of the net to say this is how I feel. So I went out, showed my support, did my thing, and I'm going to go out for the caucus on Saturday. For those who don't know, show up on Saturday to the caucus in Washington, vote. Make your voice heard for what it's worth. I'm reluctant to even talk about politics anymore because people like to say, oh, it's not worth it, it doesn't matter anymore, your vote doesn't count. And sometimes I sit and question myself and look up information and try to figure this out. Does it really matter anymore? It always matters, people. It always matters to make your voice heard. If nothing else, to just ruffle the feathers. Even if everything's rigged, at least you can let people know how you feel, because otherwise you just get lost in the commotion and your voice is never heard as a human. So I urge everybody to get out and vote and do your part. I know it's a pain in the ass, but gotta do it.